All right, welcome to the seventh episode of the Next Man Up podcast. For those who have not seen it before, this is just a podcast that my friends Richard and Adam and I have started to just discuss sports with some regular Joes. Maybe have a beer, maybe have a whiskey, and like today, maybe bring on the Next Man Up, which today is going to be one of my oldest pals, Dennis. Dennis, welcome to the pod, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Um, well, let's hop to it, guys. Adam, Richard, feel free to say hello. Sorry, I didn't introduce you.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, you forgot about us.
I'm sorry. I just like
you were so pumped about
here.
Dennis. Apparently.
Yeah, I just like Dennis a lot, I guess. Yeah.
I was about to say oldest friend, man. I've known you since like sophomore,
I was
junior.
gonna say it hasn't been that long, but I said an older friend, I thought, but maybe I didn't.
Oldest friend, bro.
Oh,
It's
well,
okay.
I guess so. You are my oldest friend, maybe, allegedly.
Austin didn't
right.
exist in grammar school at all.
I didn't. I was an enigma. Speaking of not existing, how about college basketball not existing until March Madness? So we've really not acknowledged it at all this year. It's been especially quiet. I honestly didn't even know if they were going to do March Madness this year. Obviously, COVID affected it last year. But I want to just take a quick minute and talk about this year's March Madness because it's been a pretty wild one if anyone's been following. There's been some upsets and stuff. And sort of got me thinking and sort of begs the question. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and other places, even some NBA players. John Morant, I think, made a joke about how weak some of these high-seeded teams have been and how easily they've fallen.
Right.
Do you guys think that's more of a product of just a weak college basketball recruiting class, or do you think the game of basketball, the talent gap between these smaller schools and the larger schools, the Kansas, Kentuckys, Duke and Kentucky not even in it this year, I think is also unusual. Do you think the gap is just closing? Do you think smaller schools are getting better at basketball and these larger schools are losing their grip? Or I don't know. I was just kind of curious what your guys' thoughts are, if anyone had anything to weigh in there.
Sure. I think it's a little bit of a combination of things that you said. I think for one, you have to look at it and say this is kind of a different year with COVID going on, as you kind of stated. A lot of people didn't know how much college basketball would be played, and I think there was just less hype around college basketball this year. And like you said, a lot of people didn't even know if March Madness was going to be a thing this year. And I didn't really know until the day before I got like an email from ESPN being like, fill out your bracket. And I filled one out and I was like, oh, when's this down? And they're like, tomorrow. And I'm like, oh boy, tomorrow. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things at play there. But definitely, we've seen some impressive things out of some of the smaller schools. So we may be seeing a shift in talent levels, I guess, towards those smaller schools.
I don't think it's so much like the talent level. I think it's just more so due to COVID itself, because in general, with COVID, everything's different. Those like bigger schools normally have a huge crowd that they normally play and play against, where these smaller schools, they're like, where they play might only hold like 5,000 people or something. So then when you get to the big March Madness, some of those smaller schools have like a ton of like pressure. There's tons more to worry about, a lot more like noise and things that they're not used to playing.
That's a great point.
In general. So I think that like this not having a crowd benefits the smaller schools, where the larger schools are so used to having that.
That's a great point.
Like they can get kind of more pumped up when the crowd starts getting pumped up. Like when you have like 20, 30,000 people yelling and screaming, like your adrenaline starts like going.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Definitely think that probably has something to do with it. The smaller schools haven't played in front of crowds, large crowds ever, and some of those bigger schools kind of rely on that energy from the fans to perform, I guess.
I definitely never thought of it from that perspective. I think that's a great looking at it, Rich. That's a really great point. Some of these schools are known for their student sections. They're loud and rambunctious. Their home courts are big. They play in conferences where they play other large schools on the road, and they're used to crowds booing them as well. But honestly, I don't know. I think that's definitely something I certainly overlooked. But the way I look at it is, I don't know. I kind of do think that gap is also shrinking though. Like you look at some of the best players in the NBA. C.J. McCollum, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. Some of these guys who went to smaller colleges are it's really worked out for them in their careers. You look at Ja Morant, who I think was the one I mentioned, made the joke on Twitter that he would have tore it up in March Madness this year with no crowd. But yeah, I think it's interesting to consider that. I think players are starting to realize that, although you might win an NCAA championship playing on a stacked Duke or Kansas team, it's bad for your draft stock in the NBA and it hurts your development to have to share the spotlight with some of these players. I think maybe some of these star players from high school are starting to say, hey, wouldn't mind playing for a smaller school because it might be a way to get my name out there, might be a way to get my draft stock up. And these schools that people don't know much about, people are sleeping on because there's one or two guys on that team that can get hot on a given night and single-handedly win a game and pull an upset, or maybe a couple in a row in the case of March Madness, since it's single elimination. You can quickly move through that tournament if you get hot for, a week, 2 weeks. So I don't know. I think I just wanted to bring that up. I know we normally talk pro sports, but I thought that would be a, nice little intro here since we're in the heat of March Madness.
Who do you got winning it then, Austin?
I didn't make a bracket this year, but it's hard to argue with Gonzaga. I believe they're undefeated on the season.
Yeah, that's who I had picked in my original bracket.
Yeah. I like Baylor too, though. That team looks good. And then, my heart wants to see Loyola win. I mean, it's fun to watch that team. Anytime you got a 101-year-old woman coming out to see your games in the heat of a global pandemic, I mean, it tugs at the heartstrings. You want to see that team.
And they did well last year as well.
There was no March Madness last year, but
2 years ago. I'm sorry. I think it was
Final
Four even
2 years ago. Yeah,
or Elite Eight, something like that.
2019, something like that. Yeah, but the team was great a few years ago. So I don't know. It's fun. It's definitely fun seeing those mid-sized schools or these small schools do well in the tournament. I think everybody loves to see the Cinderella teams and stuff.
Especially a local team for us.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think any of us went to Loyola, but it's always cool to root for a team, even if you do come from a NIU family or a DePaul family or some other school in Illinois. Still, right. I think one of our teams is in the tournament in Illinois, it's easy to get behind it.
Sure.
But anyway, moving past college basketball, kind of flashing over to the NBA. What do you guys think about this LeBron James injury? And I think it's also important to note, for those of you not following, Anthony Davis is also hurt too. So the Lakers plagued with a pretty serious stretch here. They're without their two best players. It's definitely a top-heavy team. They still have Montrezl Harrell and Dennis Schroeder, who can do a little damage. Kyle Kuzma can certainly have a bigger role, but you think there's a losing streak in the cards for them? Do you think it's going to affect their playoff seeding and therefore their overall run, or do you think it's actually good for them that those two players will get some time to rest and rehab some nagging injuries and maybe sneak in a lower playoff seed than one might expect and be able to do more damage that way?
Sure, yeah, I definitely think first of all, it was interesting to see LeBron James fall down with an actual injury and not, when he usually barely gets touched and he goes flying 10 feet. Nate Robinson gives him half a stiff arm and the guy flies into the stands. So it was interesting to see him actually go down and with an actual injury. That LeBron throughout his career has stayed fairly healthy. So
to his credit, one of the most durable players of all time, especially with his style of play, attacking the basket and
definitely
as he does. Yeah.
So yeah, I think in a way this will actually help them because I think they will get in. They'll probably start losing some games here, but I definitely think they'll still make the playoffs. They'll get in with a little bit of a lower seed, probably get matched up versus maybe someone that's get a big game out early. Let's say they take the fourth seed or something like that. They play the fifth, something like that. They get an easier game out early. And that can pair them with maybe the top seed earlier on. That might benefit them in the long run. And like you mentioned, getting LeBron and Anthony Davis some rest time, I think will actually benefit them long term.
I kind of agree, honestly. I had Anthony Davis in fantasy this year. He's been injured for quite a while. And he just kind of looked like he was playing on one leg, didn't look healthy. I think so often we see people load manage and stuff. But a team like the Lakers that went the distance in such a bizarre season last year where they were sort of on the clock for a lot longer than a normal season because they were working out and trying to stay in shape during the time off for COVID. It was one of the, it was an easier championship run in some regards, but also a hard championship run in terms of fatigue. So I think these guys actually genuinely need it. I'll be the first to say that I think players require rest in the NBA these days compared to past players. But I think when you've gone the distance to the finals and stuff, and you're, especially at the age LeBron James is at, where you have the injury history of an Anthony Davis, like those guys actually need the rest. And like you said, looking at this standing, there's sort of a strategy too with no crowds and stuff involved. It's more about the actual teams and personnel matchups. And the Lakers, if they come in fourth, they would play the Nuggets in the first round, who, are a good team, but granted, they had a pretty easy time within the playoffs, didn't really give them any scares. And then they'd play the Jazz in the second round. If they were to come in second, for instance, or third, they would play, the Suns and the Clippers in the second round, and the Suns or the Clippers in the second round. And I don't think they match up as well with those teams because, I don't know, when they've played the Clippers in the past, the Clippers games are always close. They've got a lot of good defenders. And Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and Patrick Beverley and stuff that can really give the Lakers some trouble on defense and be frustrating and really wear them down on the course of a playoff run. I don't think they'd beat them in a series, but I think they'd be more frustrating than other teams. And then the Suns have Chris Paul, who I think just knows LeBron James. They're pals off the court. I don't think LeBron has much interest in playing against a guy who probably knows his ins and outs, knows what makes him tick, knows how he thinks, things of that nature. So I don't know. I could see this being a good thing as well. I kind of agree. Like them being in fourth, they'd play the Nuggets and Jazz. Those are two younger, more experienced teams that don't have a veteran leader like Chris Paul or Kawhi Leonard or Paul George on them. They're kind of led with, younger players. So I don't know. I think, like you said, that might actually be an easier route to the finals for them, especially with some time to rest.
Sure. Do you still see them getting there then?
That's a good question. I got to see how they come back from injury, particularly Anthony Davis. I think LeBron will probably be fine. I think it's just a nagging injury. But Davis has looked bad all year, so I don't know if it's something more serious. They pushed back the time frame of his return already. And if he doesn't come back at full strength, I think they're in huge trouble. I don't think LeBron's at the age anymore where he can put a team on his back and have a 40-point triple-double every game and just carry a team to the finals, especially not in the West. Maybe in the East a few years ago when it was weird, but I don't know. I don't think that's possible. So if healthy, yeah, I think they can still do it. But I really like, a team maybe like the Nuggets or the Clippers if the Lakers aren't healthy. I think that they'd be in huge danger of losing to a team like that.
Sure.
So with LeBron being out in like the playoff picture with the NBA, I've been hearing a lot about the Lakers actually dropping down to like the 6th seed in there, and that would be with potential to be playing against the top seed if they're 6.
They would be playing the third place team if they were to come in 6th. So yeah, to Rich's point though, that's a good point. And then they would be playing those teams that I think they want to avoid in a playoff record altogether. They'd be playing those teams in the first round, which would be really tough because they'd probably come back from injury, be rusty, and then they could have a really early out if they had to play, say the Clippers in the first round. Because if the season ended today, the Clippers would be in third. If the Lakers somehow fell to 6th and the Clippers held on to third, that would be a really tough first round matchup, in my opinion.
We still have a lot of basketball left, so we don't know how these teams will seed out, I guess, at the end. But yeah, I mean, it might, benefit them to play one of their tougher competitions first while they're well rested. But as you said, or they could come back rusty and struggle. But I think it could go either way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it remains to be seen. It's definitely interesting. Makes you wonder if they'll have a realistic shot at repeating. But, this could be that short-lived little Lakers dynasty, or I guess it wouldn't be a dynasty if they only won one title.
Right.
But they could easily not make the finals if these injuries persist. So it's definitely interesting. But anyway, speaking of playoff runs, we brought on our pal Dennis today because the Bulls have actually made some big moves. So
definitely.
definitely excited to talk about that, as I'm sure a lot of you guys are.
Yeah, for sure. Let's hear what he has to say. Dennis, did you like the trades?
Yeah, I did like the trades. I think that Vucevic is a really good addition to the squad. I think that Arturas Karnisovas has a good head on his shoulders. I mean, anything's an upgrade from Garpax. I'll say that.
Sure.
True.
Right. Yeah.
Frustrating front office for sure.
Definitely.
You can already notice the difference that they're actually trying and trying to make changes. And stuff.
Yeah, I definitely felt the aggression here at the trade deadline.
Yeah, this is
it's
I think
very
both fans are
rare.
excited. You know, normally if we get aggressive at a trade deadline or in free agency, it's for players that are over the hill. But, you know, Vucevic probably had the best season of his career this year. Was an all-star for, I believe, the second time now. And the Magic were kind of imploding. They saw an opportunity to get him for what I consider kind of a steal. I know you guys, football fans, Rich and Adam, tend to hate giving up draft picks, but we've sort of touched on that and sort of how I feel there. And two first-round picks, Wendell Carter and Otto Porter for a 30-year-old all-star caliber center. That's huge, and it signifies that, you know, this team's in make the playoffs now mode, and I like to see that aggression too. I think we all do.
It also is a year to make sure that Zach LaVine stays with us. I think Zach LaVine's the truth. I've watched him since 2013. I went to Missouri, and UCLA came to town, and Zach LaVine just absolutely freaking demolished the team. And it was bad. And I knew that this kid was the truth. And so when he got when we did the Jimmy Butler trade in, I heard Zach was coming to Chicago. Man, you have no idea how hype I was when he came in. And
I thought it was a great trade too. Yeah, I think a lot of people were stunned by that. It signified a rebuild, but I think it was smart because Jimmy Butler wouldn't have stuck around. We probably would have lost him and got nothing in return. So to Dennis's point, Zach LaVine's had a high ceiling for a long time, and he's finally, you know, in his prime, and he's only 25, I think, 26 maybe.
So, I think he's only like 24, Austin. I don't think he's 25.
I could be wrong. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not always the best with remembering guys' ages, but
I think he's 25.
You know,
is he 25? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe going into the year. Okay.
He's here. He's ready. He's doing great. He's 26 years old as of like last week. So happy birthday.
Okay, sure.
If you want to come on the pod, drink with me over in West Town, let me know. Slide into the DMs. He'll pencil you in.
I'll be the first to admit that in the moment, I did not like the Jimmy Butler trade, but I think you could definitely argue it worked out much better for us down the line. We sure got a better deal off of it than the Timberwolves did, only holding on to Jimmy for like a half after that. And now he's obviously bounced around a fair amount. But I questioned it at first, but I think, it's definitely worked out for us.
I think maybe what's been overshadowed is a lesser trade that I think actually happened as we were tuning in here. And I'm not sure if I have the details of this trade correct, but we got rid of Hutchinson and Gafford, two guys that I actually kind of liked and thought were promising, as opposed to Wendell and I'm pulling a blank. Who did we also? Oh, and Otto Porter.
Otto Porter.
But I don't know. This trade is a little bit more of a head scratcher. Although I do like Daniel Tice, but you know, I don't know. I just don't think Daniel Tice really fills a need that we have on this team now that we have Vucevic. So I think maybe he'll be a nice backup center, but I really wouldn't want to see him out there alongside Vucevic. I've seen Daniel Tice trying to play some power forward in Boston, and I think that's a lot of the reason that they moved him is because it's not a good lineup for them. That you know, he's not a good enough shooter to space the floor. He can do it a little bit, but I think he's more comfortable playing as an undersized center. And, I don't know that I like that trade as much, but I guess it remains to be seen.
I think they really pulled that trigger more for an upgrade on defense over Wendell. Wendell definitely struggled on defense. Yeah. So I think they brought him in more for, you know, defensive situations, which. And
I guess that's true. Vucevic, not as good of a defender as he is an offensive player. So in late game situations, I could easily see them subbing in Tice at center, so playing a little bit smaller and more defensive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would agree. I like the moves. I thought Otto Porter has really underperformed since we've acquired him. He's been injured a lot since we've acquired him. I don't even know if he's ever played an entire season for the team. And when he's on the floor, he's really streaky. He has a good game here. He has a couple bad games in a row. And he always accredits that to, I'm coming back from injury. Well, if you're always coming back from injury and you're always streaky, then I would rather have you be consistent and be consistently pretty good than be
Yeah, it's true.
all-star
Yeah.
one game and completely, shit the bed the next day.
It's
So
hard from a cap space standpoint to have players like that because it's
sure.
like, how do you pay a player like that that's going to be a fringe all-star at their best, but then just completely not even on the floor at other times? It's like, how do you value that player? That's how you get locked into those horrible contracts that, you flash forward 4 years and you go, on earth did we sign this deal? So I don't know. I liked Otto Porter's game when he was healthy, but I agree that you can't have guys that injured on your team. You need guys that can actually suit up and play. And we're trying to make a team that can compete for a playoff spot. So
and
I just don't think you can have a guy that's that inconsistent from a health standpoint on the team.
And that's the reason why I didn't mind getting rid of Gafford. He's another guy that he really showed promise at times, especially defensively as well. And he brought a lot of energy, which is something I really liked. But he was streaky. Like he would have a good game or he was getting a bunch of boards and playing good defense. And then he would go 2-3 games and get a couple minutes in a game because he was fouling and getting technicals and really not contributing. So again, I would really much rather have that consistent player that you know what you're going to get every night than bring in a guy that's not consistent. So I didn't mind getting rid of him. Obviously, we talked in the past a little bit about Wendell, another guy that was really not consistent.
Right.
Some nights he showed promise. Some nights he kind of disappeared. And he was too soft for me. I felt like, especially on the defensive end, he was soft. Sometimes I would have like 1-2 plays a game where they threw him a pass
you were saying
wide open, and he would just completely miss it, or it would go off.
I agree.
And
I haven't watched nearly as many bowl games as you this year, but I know exactly what you're talking about. He makes some plays where you're like, that's such a bad turnover. That's just a low IQ play or just a lack of focus or a lack of effort. And yeah, having a player like that, especially trying to anchor your team in the center spot, is just kind of hard to deal with. So I don't know. I wish Wendell the best. I think Orlando would be a better opportunity for him because they're totally breaking it down. So I think he'll have some opportunity to make some mistakes there as they rebuild. He'll have a lot less pressure playing. He won't be playing with someone like Zach that's maybe ready to start competing in the playoffs. He'll be playing with other developing players like, Mo Bamba and Markelle Fultz and some of the other guys out in Orlando that they're going to hold on to, I think.
Yeah, and Orlando essentially had a fire sale.
Yeah, they did. Speaking of the rest of the NBA, we could look at some of these other moves, certainly, or Aaron Gordon to Denver for Gary Harris and RJ Hampton.
Yeah, right.
It's actually a good trade for Orlando, I think. I don't know that I like that for Denver. What do you think?
I think both sides have its pro and con. I think they gave away a lot for Aaron Gordon, though.
I agree.
He's
RJ
showed
Hampton could be huge.
He's shown, again, that fringe all-star type talent. But I don't know. I just think they kind of gave away a little bit too much. What do you think, Dennis?
I would have liked to see Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine on the same team. That'd been pretty good.
That would be exciting. Certainly,
you would see a lot of dunks. I think.
Yeah, their Instagram channel would be lit. Watching their dunks and pregame warm-ups and practice and stuff would have been really cool. But I think that's the funny thing is like Aaron Gordon's health isn't the greatest. So
yeah,
what do you think about that? Do you think Aaron Gordon is like sort of a damaged goods the way Otto Porter is?
That's tough, man. Denver's I think Denver has a lot of assets on there. I mean, they got freaking Michael Porter Jr. on there.
They do,
yeah. When I see him play there, I'm like, damn, the Bulls messed up. They got Wendell instead,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, Denver made a lot of the picks that I wanted the Bulls to make. They got Bull. I remember being frustrated that we didn't pick him, especially when he slipped so late. We had an opportunity to pick him when we didn't. And then Michael Porter Jr., I know we were all excited. Dennis, I'm pretty sure we watched that draft together, you being a Mizzou guy, thinking, that, he would want to stay close to home and play in Chicago. And I think he even may have made, his interest in playing for the Bulls pretty well known, and they still passed on him. So a shame to see. And he's obviously had a breakout season in the playoffs last year, and is probably going to develop into a really nice player. Probably going to be an all-star, in my opinion, at some point.
He's a Kevin Durant type of player for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. He definitely fits that Kevin Durant mold. That's definitely, I'm sure, an inspiration in his game. And, Kevin Durant, I think, is one of the greatest players to ever play. I don't know if he'll amount to anything quite to that level, but, the potential is certainly there. That's certainly the ceiling. And what a hell of a ceiling that would be if he could get anywhere near Durant's level. So, yeah, things are good in Denver. I think, maybe that's why they're looking for more of a veteran presence, more of a win-now player. But, yeah, I don't know that Aaron Gordon is exactly what they're looking for. Not a great defender to pair in the front court with Jokic. I don't know. Bit of a head-scratcher move to me. The other one that I thought I liked until I saw the details of the trade was Norman Powell to the Blazers for Trent Jr. and Hood. I don't know that Norman Powell does much that Trent Jr. doesn't already do. I mean, I think he's a better player. He definitely has championship experience because he played with the Raptors. But giving up Rodney Hood, who's also played in some big finals games and stuff back when he was playing with LeBron in Cleveland, and then also Trent Jr., who I think has tremendous upside and who's like the incredibly good shooter, especially when he gets hot. Giving him up for Norman Powell, who I think is probably already in his 30s, if not pretty close. I don't know that I love that move. So I don't know if you guys have any other moves, but probably got some other topics to get to. But are there any other moves on our sheet here that you think are a bit of a head scratcher? I certainly have one I like that I'll get to here in a moment. But you guys have any moves you didn't like? Maybe we do one everybody didn't like and one everybody did like.
Here's one move I'm not liking seeing. The Kings are releasing Jabari Parker, and I'm like, man, what an unceremonious end to.
That's true. From an emotional standpoint, that's sad to see. That's a perfect example of another guy who just like couldn't stay healthy, but I think was really good when he was healthy.
I forgot why we got Otto Porter for because we traded him for Bobby Portis, and
who's tearing it up in Milwaukee right now. So that's looking like a mistake too, unfortunately.
So,
yeah.
What about you, Adam? You got any moves you hate of the ones you so kindly put in the spreadsheet for us?
I don't know if I necessarily hated anything. There was some that I was like, okay, yeah. There wasn't many that I absolutely loved other than some of the moves the Bulls made, but I wouldn't say I hated any of it either. I think everything was just like, okay, it makes sense. Okay, maybe gave up a little bit too much for that guy type of deal. But yeah, no absolute hated acquisitions, I think, at this point.
All right. Well, we're going to get to the Bears here in a moment, but there is one more I wanted to touch on really quickly that I think has been really slept on in a flurry of trades. But the Clippers are moving on from Lou Williams, who I think has really fallen off from that sixth man of the year era where he's, one of the best bench scorers of all time, arguably. I think he just passed the 15,000 point milestone. But I don't know. Lou Williams has been struggling this year. And although Rondo's not any younger and obviously still has holes in his game that he's always had in terms of shooting and stuff, that's the guy who I think just fits in for the Clippers. He's a defensive player. And I think more importantly than anything, in the locker room, he's going to give them like a vocal leader, because I think the problem with the Clippers and why they got upset in the playoffs last year, why they're notorious for blowing huge leads, is because they don't really have a vocal leader in the locker room or out on the floor that's an extension of their coach. I think Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are great players, but they're much mellower guys. I don't think they'll chew somebody out on the bench if they make a mistake. They just don't seem like those types of guys. They seem like they lead more by example. Rondo is the opposite. I think he's arguably one of the most intelligent players to ever play in the NBA. He's a great leader. He's got incredible floor vision still, even at this stage of his career.
Good
and
defender.
He's no slouch on defense either. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's easily the most slept on move. I could be totally wrong. It could be a misfit from a play style standpoint, but I think the ball is going to move way better. I think that's some of the reason that they fall into these droughts and blow these leads, is because the ball just sort of sticks with that team. It's a lot of isolation. When the going gets tough, it's, Kawhi Leonard in the mid-range or Paul George for a long three-pointer. Like, they're sort of predictable on offense and they're more of a defensive team. I think Rondo gives them a guy, like you said, that fits in on that defensive side of the ball, but
Right.
gets the ball moving and not sticking on offense. And I think that's going to help them a ton. But
Yeah, that could definitely be a scary defense with Rondo.
Yeah,
you know,
he's
late
got that
game
long wing
situations.
Sharon. You know, you could put
Yeah.
Patrick Beverly out there on the wing as well. Have two really quick point guards. You could also
Yeah.
have shooting guards, and then you get Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and then Ibaka at center. I mean, that's a really nice defensive lineup. So they beat on defense making that move. They get better on defense making that move. So
personally, I liked the move definitely, but again, I think you're bridging that territory where they gave away, in my opinion, almost too much for him. Lou Williams, like you said, you know, has shown that he's declining, so they didn't lose a lot there. But I think they also gave up like 2 or 3 second-round picks as well.
that hurts to see, but the sign of a team competing, yeah. I mean, you know, that might be a steal for Atlanta. They're rebuilding and they could use those picks, but I don't know.
The only reason I would argue that it would be almost a little bit too much is they could have just signed Rondo this last offseason. He was available. They wouldn't have had to give up any picks for him. So if they thought that highly of him, I don't know why they didn't just sign him this last offseason. So that would be why I think, you know, I look at it going, they gave away a lot for a player that they could have just signed in the first place.
I don't know. Maybe it's their nicer way of getting rid of Lou Williams.
Sure.
You know, maybe that's more of what this is. Maybe Lou Williams, you know, obviously had that mistake where he went to the strip club to grab some wings in Atlanta. And people have been joking on Twitter that he's now in Atlanta, one of the, I guess, strip club hotbeds of the United States. And he's going to love it down there. And probably, I think he's 35 now. He's nearing retirement. And, you know,
so he might
really help a young team in Atlanta. And I don't know. I think it's more also kind of about moving on from Lou Williams, which is tough because he's done so much for that franchise. He's the reason Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are there. I don't think they ever would have gone if it weren't for him and Harrell.
Sure.
They also moved on from. And I think Lou Williams is probably upset by Harrell going to the Lakers. That was probably his best friend on the team from my understanding. So I don't know. I think maybe Lou Williams just wanted out, and that's also a part of the reason for this move.
And maybe at this point in his career, he'll spend more time at the strip club than on the court.
He probably will.
That might not be a bad move for him. I've never been to a strip club in Atlanta, but
I've never been to a strip club, period. But Lou Williams, if you want to go to the strip club with me, hit up Rich. I can read off his email if you need me to.
So wait, who's going to the strip club with Rich?
Lou Williams. No, I'm making a joke. I'm doing a bit on the podcast today that's flopping horrendously, where Rich schedules all of my appointments.
Okay, I thought you were alluding to the fact.
Happening.
I thought you were alluding to the fact that the only reason I've ever been to a strip club is because Rich like dragged me there on a St. Patrick's Day that I was like super intoxicated. But that's a story. That's a story for a different time.
Okay. Anyway, moving on.
So I do want to mention one more that I think could be a hit or miss trade. I think it could work out really well, or it could not work out well. Was Victor Oladipo going to Miami Heat?
Yeah,
definitely another guy that struggled with injuries over the past couple of years. But if he's on the floor, he could really kind of make an impact for Miami. So that might not be a bad move for them if he can stay healthy. So I think it's kind of a hit or miss move for them.
He fits that identity. When we get back to on the trade topic subject, because I think we've got another segment coming up about that. I have another trade that's Miami Heat related that I would have liked to have seen, and maybe we still will see, but I don't think we will at this point. I think this is probably the move that they're going to make to bolster their roster a little bit. But anyway, that could definitely work out. I agree with you. The injury concerns are definitely legitimate, but Victor Oladipo, another great defender, just seems like a gritty guy. He played in Indiana, which is the same kind of get it done by committee, get it done by playing defense type of a culture. And I think he's going to fit well in Miami, whether he plays or not. I think he's going to accept his role no matter what it is. So
they really pretty much gave up nothing to get him. I think they gave up a second-round pick or
Kelly Olynyk and some late round picks. Yeah, so it's a good low risk, extremely high reward move. So great point. All right, guys, moving on.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk Bears, and let's try to be a little bit more positive this week than we were last week. We won't try to talk anybody into a depression. last week, but
Well, I'm still gonna shit on Ryan Pace here, but
okay,
it won't
sure.
be as depressing though. I hope.
Okay, yeah. Rich, have they made
This
any
is the Rich I
signings?
wanted last week.
Have they made any signings that you like? Any
Okay.
signings at all?
So there's a couple here that are just like I got a couple highlighted that I'm just like they stick out more, like the Desmond Trufant. That is just like okay, you got rid of Kyle Fuller. Now you just got like a poor man's Kyle Fuller. He's
Sure.
good. He could hold his own. It's a good pickup after losing Fuller, kind of deal. But I don't think he's going to be like, locking anybody down. He's not
Sure.
going to make too many mistakes, but he's also not going to be like, you know, laying big hits, picking the ball off. He's just going to be, that's just like a solid signing. The other one I actually really liked was Damian Williams, the running back. I thought that was a good move because with Tariq Cohen going down last year, our like backfield outside of Montgomery was a complete shit show. It
Right.
was just like no one knew what they were doing. Cordell Patterson, I thought looked really good, but they never gave him enough carries to actually really kind of do anything. So that was kind of weird. Everything else, it's just like they picked up a couple offensive linemen. That's kind of given. Our old line sucks. Brings in some type of competition. Same thing. We brought in a lot of linebackers, a couple safeties. Like again, positions that we need depth in / maybe some type of position battle. But again, with Ryan Pace picking them up, the talent evaluation, not completely sold on kind of what he's thinking or what he's trying to do with like anything. So trying to be a little bit on the bright side, but it's still like some of the moves he's made, it's like really like, come on, man.
It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, man. When I've got like Lions fans texting me like, "Yo, what are you guys doing?" Like that's when you know it's bad.
If the Lions are questioning our moves, we know we're definitely not
Like
heading in the right
seriously,
direction.
like people that are root for a team that's perennially bad are like, "Yo, even we don't do stuff like this. Are you guys okay?"
Yeah. No, I would say we definitely haven't made any moves that I'm like, oh yeah, that was a really great move. And we've made a couple that I would say, oh, that was a really bad move. But there's a couple signings here that I think aren't terrible moves. I think Ryan Pace is signing for like depth right now, which is fine. Teams with good depth usually do well, but it's like there's a couple positions where we need a starter, not depth. So I thought bringing in Elijah Wilkinson, who's been a starter for the Broncos, I think, again, like that's a guy that he's not going to come in and be a day one starter. He's going to have to compete for a job. Same thing with Angelo Blackson. I thought they were making that move because I was really worried that they might be releasing Akeem Hicks or trading Akeem Hicks. That no longer looks like that's going to be the case. So again, that's just adding more depth. I don't mind bringing Christian Jones back, who was a good kind of role player for us before. But again, none of these guys are coming in and making an immediate big impact. So we'll see. I think there's still a lot of things that were not addressed, and I don't know where we're going with this. Are we kind of turning our focus towards the draft for starters? Obviously, we've had a couple hits, at corner and linebacker in the draft the past couple of years, but I would not be shocked with Andy Dalton only signing 1 year if the plan is to go after a quarterback again in the first round.
Yeah.
And I will not be happy if we trade up again and take another quarterback. If the plan is to trade up for Mac Jones in the first round, I will not be happy. I mean, if he falls to us
That
at 20,
sounds so dumb. Trading up for Matt Jones.
Yeah.
That is like, but that is a total like Bears move
Right,
and
yeah.
desperation by Ryan Pace. Like
Yeah.
another one too is what is it, Trey Lance? That's another guy that like if he falls to us, great. But if we give up any
He won't.
capital to trade up for that guy, like he didn't play last year. When he did play, just read, here's a huge stat line for you about how much he has not played quarterback. When he was the quarterback, he was averaging throwing the ball, I think it was like 15 to 18 times a game. So less than 20 passes a game. And he took all last year off too. So this guy is just nothing but like raw talent, which again, those guys typically do not pan out well in the NFL because you could look at any raw talent guy, the guys that like break the record running the 40. All the record breakers did not do well in the NFL except for Chris Jones. Outside of that, every corner, every receiver that has like come close to breaking that record and or broken the record has just been trash on the football field.
Sure.
So talent and how fast or how strong your arm is only one aspect of like the game.
Right. I would say this, Rich, definitely the comparison for him right now is Josh Allen, which Josh Allen came in with that. He had that athletic talent. He was a big guy. He could throw the ball for miles type of thing. And he's come in and really like honed in his game. And I think the Bills, their coaching staff has really helped with that. And that's kind of his comparison. But that's kind of more of a ceiling for a guy that hasn't played a lot of football. So, yeah, I would not like trading up for him. I don't think he's even going to be available. I don't think he makes it out of the top 10 even. I would say Mac Jones is probably more possible for the Bears to trade up get him, but I would not be happy with a trade up. Again, if either of those guys fall to 20, I understand taking whatever. You see a future in a quarterback, you take that quarterback. Just like I wouldn't have been super pissed if they would have sat and took Mitch Trubisky at 3 in that year's draft. I would have said whatever. The fact of the matter is when you move up, you better hit on that player. And it seems like every time we move up for a guy, it's not a hit, and that's what I hate to see is moving up, giving away a ton of capital and not getting a guy that we need, I guess.
I 100% totally agree with that. The trading up, especially in the first round, if you're giving up more capital, you better hit that or you're just kind of done. So I'm going to say with that, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the Bears free agents or Bears signing because it still is a little disappointing. Mm-hmm. Still trying to figure out what Ryan Pace is doing since it has been so bad. So with that, let's go around the table here. And let's have everyone say one trade that they would like to see in any of the major sports. So let's start with Austin.
I was going to say, let's start with you if you wanted to, because you seem so frustrated with Pace. If you were in his position, what trade would you make? Like, what move would you make? But I'm happy to go first. But if you need a minute, that's cool. But I feel like you probably already have one in the chamber.
Okay, I'll just go then. So for the Bears, I'm not going to go with like a fantasy trade here of something that like, this would be just amazing to happen. Where it's like,
let's keep it possible, guys. Let's all do that. Let's all keep it realistic, as realistic as possible.
I definitely want to do more so a realistic trade. Looking at the capital that we tried to give up for somebody like Russell Wilson. Didn't happen. We didn't have a quarterback to give Seattle. Makes sense. If they're going to give up Russell Wilson, they have to have some type of quarterback backup for that. So, again, with that, I think a trade that is still possible on draft day is still trading for Sam Darnold. I think that guy still has some potential. He's only 23 years old. I think that guy just needs a complete change of scenery. And again, with the Jets having the second overall pick, they could kind of get another one of those top quarterbacks there. So realistically, I think his value, even giving a first round pick for Sam Darnold, I don't think that's asking a whole lot because again, the Bears suck at drafting the first round anyways.
Right.
I still feel even at 20, we're still going to F that up somehow. So might as well at least go out and get someone that has a higher ceiling and higher potential at potentially being good. Because it's the same thing is drafting someone.
Yeah, I would say that's not a like we've talked about it in the past, Rich. I really like that move. I just don't see it happening anymore with them promising essentially the starting position to Dalton. I just don't see them really going out and acquiring someone. I think they'll do a Mike Glennon type situation where now we're going to draft somebody because now we got kind of the bridge quarterback that they were wanting. I just don't see them acquiring another back, but I definitely wouldn't hate the move, Rich. I like it, if anything. So, Austin, I guess you can go next.
I definitely have mine, and it was a rumor that was floating around this week that was really exciting. Since our Bulls are still retooling, obviously happy with the moves that they've made this week. But I think the thing that was interesting is I've been following the Heat a bit more since our former Bull Jimmy Butler's playing out there in Miami, and that team when he went down earlier this year for a variety of different reasons, I think it was COVID and injuries, they really struggled. And now that he's back, they've picked things up a little bit, but they're still not where they were in terms of sneaking into the finals like they did last year. And before they made this Victor Oladipo move, I don't know if it's still something that's possible, but I would have really liked to see them trade for Kyle Lowry. And I assume they made an effort to trade for him, but I think Kyle Lowry is so Miami Heat. They talk about that Miami Heat culture and what it means to play there and the type of players that do well in that system. And that just seems like Kyle Lowry to me, man. I mean, this is a guy who's, led the Raptors in scoring. He's also deferred to Kawhi Leonard and been more of a facilitator. He's been a defensive guy at times. He's been, a knockdown shooter at times. He's just a versatile player that's comfortable accepting his role on a night-to-night basis, and it may be being totally different on any given night. And those types of guys seem to do super well in Miami. I mean, there were stretches during the playoffs last year where they had a different leading scorer, on various different nights. Their lineups are usually pretty deep. And I just think Lowry's shooting ability and defense and ability to still make plays just makes him like a great fit there. This is a guy who I think has led the league in charges drawn a couple times, and just, I don't know, just your gritty, old school type of a player. He can guard multiple different positions. That All-Star game 2 years ago where it came down to the wire, he was like trying to draw charges in an All-Star game and stuff. I don't know. I think a guy like Kyle Lowry is not only going to give them championship pedigree because he's won one before, granted not being a leader, but I think that's what's great about him is that he's not going to compete with Jimmy Butler to be the best player on the team, but he's easily able to fill that number 2, maybe even number 3 guy behind Bam Adebayo role. And I just thought, I assume they did make an offer for him, and who knows, maybe something is happening during this podcast and he'll end up in Miami. But I think it's over and just thought it was a fit, a match made in heaven. So I'm surprised they didn't make that move.
Yeah, I think it's over, Austin. I think no move is past 3 o'clock, so I don't think it's going to happen. Definitely Lowry. I would say the 3 most surprising non-movers this trade deadline were all 3 L's: Lowry, Kyle Lowry, Lonzo Ball, and Lauri Markkanen were 3. A lot of rumors swirling those 3 guys, and none of them got moved. I think that's a good trade that would definitely help the Heat out.
Dennis, what do you think? I know you talked to me a couple times about Lonzo maybe being a Bull. Is that something you wanted to see, or just something you thought was kind of funny? Because that certainly was a rumor throughout.
Sure, yeah,
definitely. Portion of the season.
I think that Lonzo Ball has a lot to give to the Bulls, and I think it's clear that Zach LaVine wants him on the team. I mean, I don't know if you saw Zach LaVine was whispering in Lonzo Ball's ears, it's just like, come to Chicago. But if
both UCLA, right? Those 2 guys.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a good point. UCLA connection.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I hate to see Lauri Markkanen go. I like the guy. I think
same.
He's a unicorn. But the problem with unicorns is that they get injured. So
right.
Just look at Kristaps Porzingis.
Right. Exactly.
But I think having Vucevic on the team is going to really help Lowry actually ease back into the power forward role. Since Vucevic is
yeah, that's true. It's where he belongs. He's not strong enough to be a center. He's got to bulk up if he wants to do that. And I just don't think he has the aggression to play center.
He's shown it at times, but yeah, just he hasn't shown it consistently. So yeah,
So
I
Dennis,
guess
not to put words in your mouth, but would that be your fantasy move, or do you have something in the Blackhawks Bears region, in another team within any of the four major sports?
Well, I hate to be one dimensional, but if the Bears could somehow get Albert Okwuegbunam from Denver from the Broncos, that'd be dope.
Sure, yeah, that would be a good move. If they can afford to make any more moves, every time you hear a player being talked about, it's they can't afford that, and every time we make a signing, they're like, but they could have afforded this guy. So yeah. I guess I'm last, so I'll go. And I just kind of want to preface this by saying I was just really happy to see Otto Porter go. I think, again, a guy that showed promise, but just that we were paying him way too much money to constantly sit on the bench and then have really streaky games. So that would have been my trade if it didn't already happen. So I will go with another one that I've been calling for a lot, and that would be to trade Nick Foles for literally anything. Literally, like a case of beer and like a pack of cigarettes. Trade Nick Foles.
Nick Foles slander is back.
So yeah, I think if anyone's listened to our podcast and listened to me talk for more than 10 minutes, you know how I feel about Nick Foles. So literally, I don't care what you get for him. 6th round pick, 7th round pick, swapping a player, swapping picks, trading up even. I don't care. Get rid of the guy. We're paying him too much money to be a terrible player. So yeah, anything for Nick Foles would be my trade, I guess.
Well, okay.
And that wraps it up.
Speaking of Bears, I guess we've also got on this rundown sheet. Adam, I think you're the resident local sports guy. You usually have the best pulse on that. But apparently it's been a pretty rough month for the Bulls, Bears, and Blackhawks. You got any stats to throw at us? Anything you want to get sad about real quick? We got to start ending these pods on a head. We got a 2-minute drill on here too. So
we'll try to make the 2-minute drill happy after this segment. Yeah, definitely a rough month for diehard Chicago fans in general, unless you're a baseball fan with that coming back. But as we've talked about, none of us are really.
I don't know. That Cubs guy got caught with all the drugs. That's not good.
Oh, well, not good for who, Rich?
Maybe slander.
Maybe the drugs are helping.
Same antics.
Anyway, back to my point, Rich. Yeah, the Bulls. I think
get that shot in.
I think the Bulls are 4-8 since the All-Star break. After going into the All-Star break, they were over the last 10. I think they had won like 7 of 10 going into that All-Star break. They're 4 of 8 since. Have played some beat-up teams and still found ways to lose games. So they lost to a Cleveland Cavalier team last night that was without many of their starters. It was really disappointing to see. Hopefully some of these trades and getting some of these players in and getting some of the wasted space out will help us. Bringing in a more competitive center, I think, will help us get back on track, and hopefully we can still grab one of those playoff spots. But yeah, that's been disappointing. I had some pretty high hopes that the Bulls were going to make that 6-7 seed range for sure, and they have to play a lot better basketball than what we've been seeing. And then the Blackhawks as well, they're 3-8 this month after, again, last month I think they were like 8-2 or something like that, or they took points in 8 out of 10 games in a row or something like that. So they were looking really good. I think I was even texting you guys one of the nights, like, you guys need to start watching more Blackhawks. They're really they're really looking better than everyone was expecting. And then of course they dropped 6 of the last 7 and stuff like that. Finally got a win last night. They're on right now. Have no idea what they're doing, but yeah, definitely rough for them. I'm happy to see that it looks like Kirby Doc is set to return. I think they said possibly as early as next week. I definitely think we need as much help as we can get to get back on track. We still are looking to grab a playoff spot, so they need to get back to playing better hockey. And 7 rookies have played, a primary role for the Hawks this year. As to Rich's point a couple podcasts ago about them being kind of an older team, that's showing that they're focused on kind of developing some of these young players. So I like to see that, but definitely need to turn that around. And then as far as the Bears, we've covered them endlessly. Rough month for Bears fans. A lot of the moves that we've discussed. So yeah, I was starting to get a little bit down. That definitely showed in the last podcast. So let's try to bring a little bit more light to the end of this podcast with a 2-minute drill. What do you guys think?
No doubt. Who's running this thing this time?
I'm in.
Rich, you want it?
Wait,
I
what?
wanted to do it, honestly. I was trying to be polite, but all right.
All right. Who wants it? Who wants it?
Nah.
I wrote some questions.
Let's go with Austin this time.
Okay, yeah.
Well, if
Austin,
the
you ready?
questions are not things I would know, then and they're more towards
Man, I would really hope you would know these answers.
Okay.
I would really hope that you would know some of these answers. But
all right.
Are you ready then?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
All right. Let me start a timer here.
How many we got?
You got 8 questions, 2 minutes.
All right.
So be brief, but definitely, give us a short explanation for your answers as well. But
all right.
Whenever you're ready, I'll start the time and we'll go.
I'm ready to rock. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Number 1. When everything starts opening up again, where is the first place you will go? Or what will you do?
Not sports related.
Nope.
Geez, I'd probably go to the bar Lottie's in Chicago. Shout out Lottie's. I don't know why. I just miss people, being around a lot of people. And that's a bar that's always packed wall to wall. When things finally get back to normal, I'll be going there. Or the Owl in Logan Square, another place.
Okay.
Good time.
Oh, the Owl? Are you kidding me?
All right.
Wow.
Hey,
Rich is breaking
in
on this.
We got to keep moving. We got to keep moving, though. We can talk about this later. Let's
Number
go.
2.
Win this thing.
Austin, what do you put on your hot dog?
Oh, I hate hot dogs, so moving on. I don't eat them at all.
Cool.
Yeah. I put them on the trash. That's
what
the fuck?
What is the best restaurant in Chicago?
I want to take this moment to actually plug a restaurant that's new. Taqueria Chingon is a restaurant my friend Oliver Polove opened up. His family owns Le Bouchon, the French restaurant in Chicago, and during COVID, they sort of pivoted and opened a Mexican restaurant called, Taqueria Chingon. And it's great.
Halfway, by the way.
Best tacos I've ever had. So shout out to them. Put the link in the YouTube description if anyone's interested. Anyway,
what is your favorite pizza place in Chicago?
Oh, I got to go with my hometown Amato's Pizza.
Okay.
In my neighborhood. Anyway, moving on.
You kind of maybe already answered this one. What is the best bar in Chicago?
Oh, the Owl, for sure. It's a good time.
Best place to get dessert in the city of Chicago?
Oh, geez. Damn. That's a good question. I don't know. I'm going to time out.
Okay.
This caught me off guard.
We'll come back to it. Okay, you got 15 seconds. What is one place in Chicago any tourist should visit? Stadium, place, monument?
Oh, you got to check out the Field Museum for sure. Underrated.
Okay, definitely.
Better than the Bean, no doubt.
What is Chicago's best kept secret?
Jeez, that's tough.
Can't say the Owl now.
Time.
I don't know. Dennis would actually be the guy to ask that. Dennis has a pulse on all.
All right, are you going to use your phone a friend?
Chicago. I am going to. I think I missed it by a question anyway because that dessert question threw me off.
All right, Dennis, you're being phoned in.
Dennis, what's the most slept on spot in Chicago? You've got a good pulse.
Yeah. Remember 2 years ago we went to Chinatown? I don't know if we got rolled ice or anything.
Oh, I have one now. Go ahead though, Dennis.
No, you go ahead. I was just giving you a little bit of a plug. So
Little Vietnam is the most slept on place in Chicago. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I always forget about it because I normally go up there during the summer when you can go to the beach and stuff. But our friend Kim, Dennis and I's friend Kim, actually got me going there, checking out some of the restaurants over there. I've been to a few different restaurants up in Little Vietnam, but yeah, that's easily the most slept on place. You're pretty close to the beach. And then there's also some terrific food over there. And actually circles back to the dessert question too. You can get some rolled ice cream in Little Vietnam too, which is great. So yeah, it kind of just checks all the boxes. Like if you're bored in the summer, it's a great place to hang out.
All right. Well,
I
I'm in.
still cannot hold on. I still cannot believe I am baffled by your bar choice. Out of all the bars in the city of Chicago, you go with the Owl.
I don't know,
Holy
man.
crap.
I'm missing it,
Wow.
especially these days.
Rich, what would,
I don't know that is my favorite. Actually, I think my favorite might actually be the Rattler. You guys ever been there in Logansport?
Oh,
Yes,
man.
I have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that bar a lot too.
Rich, what would you say? I'm gonna throw out one here just because we've had some good times there, and I would go with like Sluggers or the Cubby Bear or something over there in Wrigleyville, just because we have so many good.
That's your dad's favorite bar. What's your favorite bar?
Man, I was going to say mine was actually going to be like just the Wrigleyville area, even though I
that's
hate the
cheating.
Cubs.
Wait,
and I'm not
so
a Cubs
Rich, you're
fan,
gonna come at me
but
for my
the
favorite bar choice?
bars are
You can't
way
even narrow it
better.
down to one?
If I am, Adam literally just took them. The one St. Patrick's Day down there at like the
Yeah.
Cubby Bear is like one of my best memories
that's a
ever.
horrible take.
Getting the whole bar on the
horrible
second floor playing Flippy Cup.
We did get
That
like
was nuts.
we did get like
That does
40.
sound fun.
We got like 40 plus people playing Flippy Cup to the point where the bar was literally plugging the Cubby Bear a little bit. They were just literally bringing out pitchers of beer for free, just because
Yeah.
people were spending so much money
on
pitchers and stuff that they literally just kept them rolling. And
That's
on St.
unbelievable.
Patrick's Day, so it was pretty good.
Every
And-
bar's fun on St. Patrick's Day, though. That's
Yeah.
not a fair assessment
Yeah.
of bars.
And then smuggling
I was
that
lit every weekend. I'll just say.
smuggling that backpack into Sluggers, Rich, and that wasn't even ours. That had like it was just like full of Fireball for some reason.
Dennis, you got a favorite bar?
Me?
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough question. I'll probably say, I'm sorry, I'm gonna disappoint you. It's the Owl. That's my favorite bar.
Yeah, dude, the Owl's a good time, man. It's cool. They play great music, and it's open late, which is nice.
Yeah,
Like,
it's open till 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, disclaimer: drink responsibly. Don't pass out on the couch and get a flashlight shine in your eyes. Not that I know from experience. I do. But yeah, I mean, like that's a bar that's great because like you can sort of miss the initial wave. I feel like most bars you try to show up at 11 and like the lines already are around the block. The nice thing about the Owl is that like it's open so long that like there's really only a small period where you'd have to wait outside in the freezing cold. You kind of just get in, and then even if you did have to wait outside, you're moving and grooving to some disco music. Like it's a good time. I like that place.
You know what, Austin? I'm gonna take that back. It's my second favorite bar. My favorite bar is the Green Mill in Uptown.
Oh, that's another good one. I do miss the Green Mill too. Seeing some jazz, kind of the opposite music vibe. Not a place to dance, but definitely a place to chill out for sure.
All right. Well, we're way off sports topic. I thought I was going to throw a monkey wrench at Austin and just
did.
on sports related
It completely.
So, yeah. Does anybody else have a final thought? Maybe we'll get a final thought from our guest, Dennis. What do you think about anything?
About anything?
Yeah, anything.
And if you're trying to play Clubhouse right now, I know you are.
No, dude, I'm burnt out. I'm so burnt out right now. I have to host 2 rooms tomorrow. But I had a chat, and this could be a topic that you guys can cover. I was talking about how the NBA G League is going to take over colleges at some point. So,
ooh, that's a great topic.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's definitely one to write down. And I think I'd have to agree with you, Dennis, that's going to be a move that kids are going to take to bypass college instead of playing overseas, especially now that like it'll be harder to move overseas, much less, harder to travel overseas, much less move there and play basketball professionally with COVID and stuff. I think you might see a huge increase in the G League's popularity. So that's a great point, Dennis.
Yep, gotta pay your players, you know.
Yeah, no doubt.
Great.
That's why we pay you the big bucks, Dennis. It takes like that. That was a good one.
Do we have to send him a gift basket that might
We
take
do.
3
Does
years?
Dennis get a beer in like 8 to 10 business months or whatever? it is?
Maybe if we get him on to do a 2-minute drill, and he'll succeed better than Austin has.
Yeah, I'm 0 for 2.
I think that's 0 for 3.
You're probably right. I've never gotten one, so I don't know how many I've done. I'm sure it's been at least 3.
You're too long-winded. You gotta
Oh,
be
yeah.
short and
That one was hard though.
sweet.
I literally blanked on certain questions.
You
And
have
also,
to.
you guys had things to add. Like Rich was like, "The owl, really?" Like that definitely.
Yeah.
Defend my answers, which
Rich
certainly
definitely
slows me
like
down.
he definitely interrupted you a little bit, which slowed you down quite a bit.
They're
But
so shocking, though.
yeah,
You want to
I
let
think
me?
I don't know, man. That's a
I'll give
fun
you a
bar,
lightning
but I gotta say though, it's hard to pick a favorite. I really like the
Yeah.
Rattler too.
it depends on your
Rattler's a great
mood
bar.
too with a bar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I think I'm craving more of those just absurd places because
Yeah.
I just want to be around a ton of people at like a Lottie's or the Owl and stuff. But after 2 weekends of doing that, I'm 27. I'm gonna want to go to like the Rattler. Like on a summer, like a Saturday in the summer, there's like no better place than just like drinking a stein, playing nails or stump or whatever it's called at the Rattler and just chilling. Like that honestly is probably one of my favorite bars too.
My advice for you for the 2-minute drill, Austin, is you got to be a little bit more like Rich and be just short and sweet.
Rich literally says yes for some of the answers.
No, I don't mean I don't.
That's cheating. That's
I
not
don't.
fair. I could do that.
An
for
answer's
all
an
the
answer, man.
I'm not saying be more like Rich with the 2-minute drill. I'm saying you should just be like Rich, short and sweet, because Rich, for
in
people that
general?
don't know, Rich, he's like 5'1", so he's short.
I'm not 5'1", I'm 5'8", you dick.
and he's very sweet. He's a very sweet person. So you got to be short and sweet like Richard, and then you'll get through it. And then maybe we'll
That
send
was
you a
mean.
beer.
That joke went over my head, and I think Rich's too. 'Cause he's only 5'8".
Oh, that's some
Oh.
bull.
That was
It's
mean.
not hard
All
to
right,
get
now
over
we're back
Rich's
to
head.
ourselves.
Yeah,
All
it's
right,
not hard to get over
ending
Rich's
pods
head.
ripping on Rich. This is great.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, now we can end it? Thanks.
Yeah. I
Okay,
think
yeah.
so.
Once
Now
we
that
got
you haven't been able to
once
get
we
a
got
word
in a good dig on Rich, but anybody else have anything more to add? Anybody?
I think we're slowly unraveling here.
Yeah. All right, we're ending it right now.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Peace
until
out,
next
fans.
week.
for joining us. Check him out on Clubhouse. We've got that app. He hosts a lot of rooms. Great conversationalist, and he'll probably be back. We'll have him run a trail soon if he wants
Yeah,
to. But
definitely.
anyway, Dan, thanks for joining us.
Of course, thanks for
And,
having me.
Thank you,
yeah,
Dennis.
this has been the Next Man
Thank
Up.
you.
We'll see you
Yeah.
guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.